there's a paradox that often surfaces when observing highly intelligent individuals. They seem indifferent, even resistant, to the demands of social life, even though society relentlessly promotes social interaction as a cornerstone of success, happiness, and personal fulfillment. From a young age, we're taught that socializing is essential, that the more friends, connections, and acquaintances we have, the more opportunities we will have, the happier we will be, and the more successful we will become. Society pushes the idea that social networks, whether personal or professional, are key to thriving in the modern world. We're told that to truly have it all, we need to be constantly interacting with others, sharing experiences, and maintaining relationships. However, for smart, intellectually driven individuals, this premise often doesn't resonate. They may prefer solitude or engage in social interactions selectively, favoring quality over quantity. Rather than seeking out the superficial connections that society deems valuable, they may prioritize introspection, deep intellectual pursuits, or meaningful relationships with a few individuals who align with their values and interests. This raises a fundamental question. Why do intelligent people often seem uninterested in the very social engagements that the world tells us are necessary for a fulfilling life? This contradiction stems from a deeper difference in how smart individuals engage with the world around them. Intellectually curious minds often find that true fulfillment comes from within, not from the noise and distractions of constant social interaction. For them, true satisfaction arises from intellectual exploration, personal reflection, or engaging in meaningful one-on-one connections, not from fitting into society's preordained social molds. In contrast, society values socializing for its own sake, assuming that more interaction equals more opportunity for success and happiness. We're constantly told that our value is tied to our social standing. The more people you know, the more likely you are to succeed in life, whether it's career-wise, romantically, or personally. This social imperative is deeply ingrained, and those who challenge it by opting out of excessive socialization are often misunderstood or seen as outliers. Yet this is exactly where the paradox lies. While society imposes the belief that social engagement equals success and happiness, the truth for many intellectually oriented individuals is that solitude or selective engagement is the path to their own fulfillment. For them, the distractions of constant social interaction can interfere with the depth of thought and creative freedom they require. They may find that their cognitive energy is best spent on independent activities, and they can often become drained or even frustrated by interactions that do not stimulate them mentally or emotionally. For highly intelligent individuals, the pursuit of deep thinking and intellectual exploration is not merely a hobby or an occasional activity. It is the very essence of their being. Unlike those who may seek out social interactions for validation or stimulation, intelligent individuals often find fulfillment in the quiet, uninterrupted world of their thoughts. They value the solitude that allows them to engage with complex ideas, challenge existing paradigms, and develop their own unique perspectives. The deeper the intellectual engagement, the more rewarding it becomes for them, as it allows them to dive into a sea of questions, theories, and ideas, untethered by external distractions or societal expectations. Intellectual pursuits are not simply a means to achieve success or gain approval. They are, for many intelligent people, an end in themselves. The process of thinking deeply, contemplating abstract ideas, or problem-solving brings them a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment that social interaction simply cannot match. Engaging with the world through intellectual channels allows them to explore the nuances of human existence, the complexities of the universe, and the boundaries of knowledge. These activities provide personal growth not through social validation or approval, but through the internal journey of expanding one's understanding and ability to think critically. Social interactions, on the other hand, often come with their own set of distractions and frustrations. For many intelligent individuals, small talk, social norms, and the pressure to conform to social expectations can feel tedious or draining. Social dynamics, with their ever-present need for approval, recognition, and fitting in can clash with the intellectual freedom that solitude offers. The superficiality of many social encounters leaves little room for the kind of deep, meaningful conversations that intellectually driven people crave. Instead of finding fulfillment in the fleeting rewards of social approval, they often prefer the autonomy that comes with solitude, the ability to think freely, explore new ideas, and delve into complex problems without interruption or judgment. The preference for solitude as a means of personal growth becomes even more evident in how intelligent individuals approach their own self-sufficiency in thought. In solitude, they can break free from the expectations of others, unclouded by the opinions or judgments that typically come with socializing. Solitude allows for a deep, uninterrupted relationship with one's thoughts, a space where true creativity can flourish. It provides the mental space needed to build original ideas, challenge assumptions, and refine one's understanding of the world. When surrounded by others, especially in large social settings, it becomes harder to concentrate on the complexities of thought, as social interaction demands constant mental adjustments to fit into the conversation. Solitude, however, nurtures clarity, the ability to think freely and independently. This intellectual autonomy is a form of liberation. It frees individuals from the pressures of societal expectations, from the need to conform to group norms, and from the distractions of everyday social life. Personal growth, for many highly intelligent individuals, happens through introspection and intellectual work. The focus on internal development is not driven by the desire to escape social interaction, but by the understanding that their true self-expression comes from the ability to think independently. It is through their intellectual pursuits that they find their sense of purpose and meaning, not through external social validation. Moreover, the need for solitude can be seen as an effort to protect one's mental energy from the incessant demand of society. Social interactions, especially with people who are not intellectually stimulating or who demand constant attention, can drain energy and diminish the clarity required for deep thought. By embracing solitude, intelligent individuals create a safe space where they can preserve their cognitive resources, allowing them to think without limitation and engage in creative problem-solving that requires full mental focus. In essence, intellectual autonomy is at the core of the fulfillment many smart individuals find in their solitary pursuits. It's not about rejecting social life outright, but about choosing self-sufficiency in thought as the most authentic and fulfilling path to personal growth. Their intellectual world is their sanctuary, a space where they can evolve, challenge their own thinking, and find deeper satisfaction than what social life can provide. The rewards of this solitude are not just personal, but transcendental, allowing them to engage with life in a manner that feels true to their deepest sense of purpose. For highly intelligent individuals, the pursuit of meaningful relationships often outweighs the desire to maintain a large social circle. While society often promotes the idea that having a wide network of acquaintances is a sign of success, intelligent people tend to see value in quality over quantity. Their time and energy are limited, and they prioritize connections that offer intellectual stimulation, emotional depth, and authentic understanding. In contrast to the superficiality that often accompanies larger social networks, intellectual stimulation becomes one of the most important aspects of a relationship for smart individuals. Social interactions that revolve around small talk, gossip, or routine pleasantries tend to feel draining and ultimately unfulfilling. Intelligent people, by their nature, are often drawn to deep, thought-provoking discussions that allow them to explore ideas, challenge assumptions, and develop their understanding of the world. When they meet someone who shares this intellectual curiosity and willingness to engage in meaningful conversation, the relationship becomes far more valuable than any number of superficial interactions. The depth of a relationship, rather than its breadth, becomes the measure of its significance. A few close, intellectually stimulating connections provide a richer emotional and mental environment than a larger network of people with whom interactions feel forced or shallow. Relationships for smart people are more than just about having someone to socialize with. They are about finding people with whom they can engage on a genuine, deeper level. For them, conversation is not a means to pass the time, but a vehicle for growth, a way to understand and explore life's complexities, to learn and to evolve. This preference for smaller, more selective social circles brings numerous emotional and mental benefits. First and foremost, it allows for a greater sense of authenticity in interactions. Rather than navigating through layers of social expectation and pretense, intelligent individuals can cultivate relationships that are rooted in honesty, understanding, and mutual respect. There is less pressure to conform to social norms or perform certain roles, and more room to express true thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Mentally, having a more intimate social circle also reduces the cognitive load that comes with managing a large number of relationships. When surrounded by too many people, the constant juggling of personalities, preferences, and social expectations can become mentally exhausting. In a smaller circle, however, interactions are more meaningful and emotionally nourishing, allowing for a clearer mind and more focused emotional energy. There is a greater sense of control over the dynamics of these relationships, as they are often more stable, grounded, and reciprocal. Moreover, smaller social circles can lead to higher quality friendships, relationships that allow for vulnerability, mutual support, and shared personal growth. These types of relationships are mentally and emotionally enriching, as they allow individuals to connect on a deeper level without the distractions of superficial interactions. There is an authentic exchange of ideas, emotions, and experiences, which fosters trust, understanding, and emotional security. For smart individuals, these deeper bonds provide the emotional nourishment and mental stimulation that larger social networks simply cannot offer. The mental clarity that comes with having fewer but more meaningful relationships also creates space for personal development. The ability to engage with others who respect intellectual depth and emotional authenticity allows for personal growth that is unimpeded by social pressures. These relationships become safe spaces where an individual can reflect, learn, and evolve, without fear of judgment or the need to perform for validation. Additionally, the need for social validation often decreases when individuals find fulfillment in quality connections. The constant validation seeking that can accompany larger social circles, where social media posts or appearances are judged, becomes irrelevant when the focus shifts to genuine, meaningful interaction. These types of relationships do not require the external affirmation that many social networks thrive on, and thus individuals are freer to be themselves without the burden of needing to meet the expectations of others. For the highly intelligent, relationship dynamics are more about depth than quantity, about meaningful exchange rather than hollow pleasantries. The fulfillment they find in a smaller social circle is not about popularity or status, but about authentic connection, the opportunity to connect with others on an intellectual and emotional level where mutual growth, understanding, and respect can flourish. In a world obsessed with quantity, the value of fewer, deeper relationships cannot be overstated. These connections provide the mental stimulation, emotional support, and personal space that intelligent individuals need to feel genuinely fulfilled. Social interactions, while essential for many, can become an overwhelming source of cognitive overload for individuals who deeply value mental stimulation and intellectual engagement. For those who are intellectually driven, socializing, especially in large groups or with superficial conversations, often requires an enormous expenditure of mental energy. Conversations that focus on trivial topics or require individuals to engage in social pleasantries can quickly become draining, leaving little room for the deep, focused thinking that these individuals thrive on. Unlike others who may find social interaction to be energizing or rewarding, intellectually oriented individuals may feel the effects of mental fatigue after engaging in social exchanges that don't offer intellectual depth. The human brain, much like any other resource, has limited cognitive bandwidth, and when too much of this bandwidth is consumed by social exchanges that don't stimulate deep thought, it can result in exhaustion and burnout. The mind that craves intellectual stimulation finds itself taxed by the constant need to navigate social dynamics such as maintaining politeness, responding to shallow questions, and engaging in small talk. Over time, these mental demands can feel like a distraction, a barrier to true creative thinking and meaningful engagement with the world. For smart, introspective individuals, the need for quiet, uninterrupted time is paramount. In a world constantly bombarded with noise and distractions, intellectuals often find that their best ideas, their deepest reflections, and their most creative insights arise only in solitude. Without the constant interruptions of social engagement, these individuals can retreat into their minds and let their thoughts flow freely without the pressure to entertain, conform, or maintain a social persona. This uninterrupted time to think and create is essential for mental clarity and intellectual growth. Without it, they may feel like they are unable to make meaningful progress in their pursuits, whether it's developing new ideas, engaging with philosophical questions, or crafting original works of art. In contrast, the psychological cost of superficial social interactions can be particularly high for those who thrive in intellectual environments. For individuals who seek deeper, more thought-provoking conversations, superficial interactions can feel like a mental drain. Engaging in conversations that lack intellectual substance, where the goal is more about passing time or gaining social approval than exploring meaningful topics, feels like an unnecessary expenditure of energy. These types of interactions contribute little to personal growth, and in fact, they can erode the sense of fulfillment that comes from engaging with others on a deeper, more intellectual level. Furthermore, superficial interactions often involve a lot of emotional labor, the need to constantly monitor one's behavior, appearance, and tone to fit societal expectations. For those who crave authenticity and genuine intellectual exchange, these emotional and mental demands can be taxing. They are forced to engage in conversations that are often disconnected from their true interests and passions, leading to feelings of frustration and a sense of lost time. This creates a sense of dissonance, where the person feels torn between their natural desire for intellectual fulfillment and the need to conform to social norms that prioritize surface-level engagement. For those who are deeply intellectually engaged, the contrast between meaningful interaction and superficial exchange becomes stark. While they thrive in environments that encourage deep thought, contemplation, and dialogue, shallow conversations feel like a mental burden. It's not that they dislike socializing altogether, it's simply that their need for intellectual stimulation means they are constantly seeking out interactions that engage their minds in a way that superficial social exchanges do not. As a result, the cognitive overload from engaging in non-stimulating social interactions can lead to burnout, leaving them feeling mentally drained and emotionally distant from others. The need for uninterrupted time to think is not just a desire. For many intellectually driven individuals, it is a necessity. Without the ability to step away from the noise of social life, they cannot engage with their inner world or make the mental space needed to reflect, create, or innovate. It is in these quiet moments that their true intellectual potential can emerge, and the constant strain of social interaction can feel like a barrier to this deep mental engagement. In order to understand the psychological and philosophical roots of why intelligent individuals often prefer solitude over social engagement, it's crucial to turn to the philosophers who critiqued societal norms. Figures like Friedrich Nietzsche and Arthur Schopenhauer, who saw social life as both shallow and distracting from deeper intellectual and personal fulfillment. Nietzsche's critique of society. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his works, often emphasized the idea of the Übermensch, or overman, a person who transcends the limitations of societal norms and moralities. Nietzsche believed that society's values, such as those based on conformity, mediocrity, and collective morality, suppressed individual creativity, autonomy, and excellence. He argued that the herd mentality, the societal tendency for individuals to conform to the expectations of others, prevents true greatness. According to Nietzsche, intelligent individuals should rise above the masses and embrace solitude and personal autonomy, rather than be entangled in the banalities of social life. For Nietzsche, the individualist, the one who values personal freedom, intellectual pursuit, and self-overcoming, is often seen as a threat to the status quo. This individual rejects the pressure to conform and instead prioritizes the development of their unique talents and ideas. This desire for autonomy and personal growth is in direct opposition to the demands of social conformity, where individuals are expected to adhere to societal norms, expectations, and roles. Nietzsche would argue that the price of social engagement, the time, energy, and effort spent trying to fit in or conform, weakens the will and distracts the individual from their true potential. Schopenhauer's praise of solitude. Similarly, Arthur Schopenhauer, one of Nietzsche's philosophical predecessors, placed solitude at the core of intellectual and emotional fulfillment. Schopenhauer was notorious for his pessimistic view of human life. He argued that suffering is inherent in existence, and the will to live constantly drives individuals into conflict with each other, perpetuating desire, frustration, and pain. For Schopenhauer, solitude provided a way to break free from the constant noise and pressures of social interaction. In solitude, individuals could reflect deeply, think critically, and engage in creative pursuits, free from the distractions of the world. For Schopenhauer, social interaction was often seen as a source of unnecessary conflict, a disruption of inner peace. Society's constant demands, whether through social norms, expectations, or the need for validation, prevent the individual from engaging deeply with their own thoughts and pursuing meaningful intellectual work. Schopenhauer believed that it was in solitude that individuals could discover their true self, free from the distractions and constraints of the social world. Smart individuals, for Schopenhauer, found freedom and fulfillment in disengaging from society and turning inward for introspection, reflection, and intellectual growth. The individualist versus the social conformist. Philosophically, there is a clear tension between the individualist and the social conformist. The individualist is defined by the desire for authenticity, self-sufficiency, and intellectual autonomy. This person seeks to break free from the dictates of society and create their own path, valuing personal growth, creativity, and independent thought above external approval or social norms. The social conformist, on the other hand, is more concerned with fitting into society, following established rules, and seeking external validation. The conformist's life is often structured around pleasing others, achieving social acceptance, and gaining approval from the wider community. From a psychological standpoint, the individualist finds fulfillment not in social validation, but in the ability to think critically, explore ideas, and engage in activities that align with their true values. They may see the social world as shallow, a place where interactions are often superficial and lack intellectual substance. Social engagement for the individualist is often seen as a distraction from their greater intellectual pursuits. The intellectual and emotional energy spent on socializing in a world that prioritizes surface-level conversations, status, and external validation can feel draining and counterproductive to those who thrive in deep thought and creative independence. The psychological perspective. For smart individuals, the psychological cost of social engagement is significant. Engaging in conversations that do not stimulate their intellect or challenge their thinking can lead to boredom, frustration, and emotional fatigue. Social interactions that focus on small talk or conforming to societal expectations often feel like a waste of time, pulling them away from the intellectual and creative space they need to thrive. The mental effort spent navigating social dynamics or adhering to the unspoken rules of social interaction can feel like an unnecessary drain on cognitive resources, leaving less mental energy for meaningful self-expression or intellectual discovery. Moreover, the emotional and mental exhaustion from social engagement can often stifle personal growth and hinder creative productivity. In an environment that demands conformity, individuals who thrive on intellectual freedom feel alienated, disconnected, and drained. Their emotional reserves are depleted not from doing meaningful work, but from trying to meet the expectations of a society that values conformity over individuality. Conclusion: the cost of social engagement, ultimately the cost of social engagement, may outweigh its perceived benefits for highly intelligent individuals. While society may value connection and interaction, smart individuals who seek deeper fulfillment through intellectual exploration, creative expression, and authentic relationships find that meaningful solitude and selective social interactions are what nourish their souls. The excessive pursuit of social validation, conformity, and external approval are seen as distractions that not only limit intellectual potential, but also stifle the growth of authentic identity. For these individuals, the pursuit of authenticity, independence, and intellectual freedom is a more fulfilling and valuable endeavor than attempting to fit into the mold of societal expectations. True growth, self-expression, and fulfillment come from engaging in meaningful work, pursuing personal passions, and creating relationships with those who share similar intellectual and emotional depth. For the intellectually driven individual, the world of shallow social engagement feels like a distraction from the deeper, more meaningful pursuits that lead to a life of true autonomy and fulfillment.